My name is Brian Branco. I'm from Lyndhurst, New Jersey, a town about 10 miles outside of Manhattan, about New York City, Midtown Manhattan. Um, so on September 11th, I worked for a company called Thompson Financial Baseline. I was actually a consultant for them. So that means I didn't work full time for them, but um, I worked several days a week. But I kind of had a variable schedule, if you want to say it like that. So the week before, Bob, the vice president, was kind of kidding me. He was like, when are you going to come back in early? Because Bob was an early person. He was at his desk at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. So that summer, I got a pool put in. I was kind of going to work a little bit late, but I had that flexibility. I said, "Hey, Bob, I'll be on Tuesday, one of my normal days. I'll be in early on Tuesday." So I was at my desk probably about 7:30, quarter to 8 that morning. Bob was there. We just talked a little bit and, kind of did some work. About quarter to 9, I felt a little vibration. And I was on the 78th floor. I was 900 plus feet in the air and felt a little vibration and didn't think much of it. Kind of walked around a little bit. I went to the my view. I had a window view, not a window office, but a window view. And a couple minutes later, at my window, I saw papers flying. And at that height, you're not supposed to see much. So I thought something happened above us. I thought it sounds weird, but I thought the air conditioner blew. Exactly what I thought for some reason. And papers came out of the building. So I called my wife, said, "Hey, something happened. Something happened." So let me go back a step. So somebody said something happened in Tower 1. So basically, I called my wife and I said to her, "Listen, something happened. Something happened in Tower 1." And she goes, "Well, we had a fight. We were fighting all weekend. So because I bought a sports car, I wouldn't let her drive it." So basically, I said, "The plane hit it or something." And she said, "What, the moron didn't see the building?" Like, kind of lighten up the mood. And I said, "Listen, I can't talk to you right now." So I hung up on her. So basically, the plan we had was to go downstairs, see what was going on, and go back up. So I was leaving with Steven Weinberg, and he said to me, "I forgot something in my office." I said, "I'll see you downstairs." Just like we're talking now, I don't remember any anxiety, any stress, anything. So I worked on a transfer floor. So I worked, like I said, on 78. So if you worked on 80 in the building, you would take an express to 78, then we take a local up to 80. It took us about a minute to get up to my floor in the mornings. There's no stopping between the ground floor and my floor. So I walked out there. Somebody said, so the plan was we were leaving together with Steven, and he said, "Forgot something in the office." I said, "I'll see you downstairs." Just like we're talking, no big deal. And I went to the elevators, and like I said, if you worked above us, you had to come down to my floor to get out. So it was called the Sky Lobby. So the Sky Lobby was pretty full of people. But I got lucky. I got the next elevator. These women had their arms locked. And I don't know if you guys know about, there was a bombing at the World Trade Center in 1993. They tried to get the one building to collapse into the other building. So I don't know if these women were there in the 93 bombing or not, but they had enough force to get on the next elevator. Let me put it like that. And I got up, pushed on, I dragged on with them. And I remember being in the elevators, and they went down very, very fast, 900 feet in a minute. But as they get down to the bottom, like they did every day, they would have to slow down and stop. So as they were slowing down, everybody's yelling, they're going back up, they're going back up. And I'm like, no. I said, they're not going back. They're doing this. They do this every day. So we get down to the bottom, first floor, and doors opened up, and it was kind of some little bit of chaos down there. So the doors I would have normally um, exited the building on, there's all debris outside. The doors were closed. So building security was pushing everybody out through the shopping mall. So the first floor of the World Trade Center complex was the shopping mall. So in there you have like the trains and things along those lines that had and the stores and stuff like that. So they push us out into the shopping mall. And I remember being in the mall, but the police yelling, get out of the building, get out of the building. And I'm like, but there's no right, but building security is pushing everybody in here, but keeping us away from Tower One because Tower One, like I said, got hit. Um, and I remember walking through the mall and really not knowing where I was because as you do something every day, you guys go to school, you walk the same way, you drive the same way. I went to work the same way. I never went outside. I never saw the complex outside. So I really kind of had to figure out what I was. And so I walked through the building, through the shopping malls, a lot of people down there. And I exited the building on the north side. I was on the south side. I exited the building on the north side. And so I go outside again. I had to figure out where I was because I either drove in most days, which I didn't that day. My car would have been right next to the building if it was. That day I took a ferry home from New Jersey. And I remember turning down one of the streets, I think it was Barclay Street, and I said, oh, it was like 2 or 3 blocks down. I said, oh, I know that building down there. The ferry's right behind there. I'll go there and get my car. I took about 20 steps down that street, and I felt it. I never saw it. I felt on the ground, 900 feet in the air, the pressure from the plane, the heat from the plane. The building across the street where I was looks like it didn't collapse. It looked like a ripple, like almost like a sound wave. You see it in a movie sometimes. It looked like a sound wave. We all ran into a building called 100 Barclay Street. 100 Church Street was on Barclay Street, and walked through the lobby of that building, exited the front. So it's kind of like a circle through the building to a degree. I basically ended up walking. Just I didn't know what was going on because in Manhattan, if you're too close, you can't see anything because the buildings and streets are so close together, you can't see anything. So I kind of looked up, but I really didn't see much. So I just knew I needed to leave. I don't know why, I just needed to leave. So I ended up walking north. I ended up walking a lot of blocks, probably about 10, 15 miles, I think. I'm going to guess. As I got several blocks away, I went to the bank. I got money because I needed money. My cell phone at the time was not working. I wanted to go buy a new cell phone, but then I figured out how to charge it. My cell phone, because of the capacity, basically everybody's cell phones were down except the one company. So I was stopping at payphones. You guys don't even know what payphones are, I'm sure. But back in the day, they had phones on the streets that you put money in and you can make a phone call. So I stopped a couple blocks away. I called my wife. I said, listen, I'm outside the building. She's like flipping out. I'm like, listen, I can't talk to you now. There's 50 people in line waiting to use the phone. I said, I'm fine. So I ended up getting, I don't know, 10, 15 blocks away. I turned around, looked at the buildings, and both buildings are on fire. And I said to myself, how did the fire jump from one building to the other? Because I didn't know there was 2 planes. I don't even know if at that point if I knew there was 1 plane, to be honest with you. I don't know what I knew. I ended up walking all through Manhattan. I heard the Pentagon got hit, the White House got hit, the Capitol got hit. Ended up going up to Midtown Manhattan, Madison Square Garden area. So it's a big entertainment center up there. And again, New York Waterway, they have boats that run to New Jersey. That's why I took on Lower Manhattan. I went up there and I was looking for the ferry because I needed to get across the river. And somebody said the line stretched for 19 city blocks of people waiting for the ferries. The ferries hold about 200 people each. I don't know how people waited in that line and just didn't lose their mind. I got very lucky. The Circle Line boats, they're big tourist boats. They run tours around Manhattan. Maybe 500, 600, 700 people they hold. I got in the third boat to New Jersey. I walked probably about 5 or 6 miles in New Jersey. There's a big helix, a big winding road, the Lincoln Tunnel coming in. That's how you get from New Jersey to New York, through a tunnel or a couple of bridges. Um, and everything was closed. I walked around the helix, and I walked probably about a mile around the helix or two. And my wife was able to drive kind of pretty close enough. She picked me up behind one of the stores down there. I was home by about 2:30 in the afternoon. When she picked me up, one of the first things she said to me is, "Why aren't you covered in white dust?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "The buildings fell." I said, "What?" I said, "More than this." I said, "What do you mean the buildings fell?" And she goes, "The buildings fell." I said, "I don't believe you." I said, "I'm there. I absolutely don't believe you." As a matter of fact, somebody on the ferry said that to me, that the buildings fell. And I looked down the river and I saw smoke. I cursed them out. I'm like, "No, I was there. You're crazy." I told my wife the same thing. We went home. We got home. My daughter was home at the time. She got home from school. She got picked up early. Um, I watched it on TV, and I turned it off and I said, "Turn off the TV. I can't watch my friends die over and over and over again," because that's what the news was showing here. Um, and we had a lot of people come over. My daughter was in third grade at the time. She was 7 years old, 8 years old. She was in third grade at the time. And again, we lived 10 miles away. They walked into a third grade classroom and said, "Just in case the principal, just in case you go home for lunch, don't turn the TV on. Two planes hit the World Trade Center." And she said underneath her breath, thank goodness it wasn't the Twin Towers, because they had the same name. And the teacher's assistant goes, "Oh, honey, it's the same building," and walks away from her. And her best friend today, from being 5 years old, 30 years old, Anthony, still her best friend, gets up and says her dad works there. They pulled her out of class. They called my wife, and I went to the same school district as my daughter goes to, so all the teachers knew me. And when I called my wife, and they're like, "You know where your husband is?" And she's like, and my wife's like, "Yeah, he's okay." "We know what's going on in New York?" She's like, "I talked to him. He's okay. Why are you calling me?" "Well, this is what we did." So she goes, "But your daughter's okay." And my wife goes, "Put her on the phone." And she starts hysterically crying. She goes, "I'll be there in 2 minutes." And she went and picked her up. She left work, of course. She went and picked her up, and she had some conversation with the principal, not so nice. But we ended up going home. I had people over. I had her friends over. I had people come over all night. Um, I'll never forget the night Bob's niece calling me, Bob Levine. He was the vice president, saying his wife called me and his niece called me. "Do you know where Bob is? You know where Bob is?" I'm like, "No, I left." Um, so that's really kind of the events of the day. Um, like I said, the other person was Joe Maurer Campbell. Joe had a son Jake. He was 10 months old on 9/11. He crawled for the first day, and she never saw him crawl. Bob Levine, he was an older gentleman. I knew he wouldn't leave. He was kind of a stubborn guy. He wouldn't leave. And Stephen Weinberg, he was with me. He was leaving, and he said, "I forgot something in my office." I said, "I'll see you downstairs." And Stephen had 3 kids. The other person was Miles. And Miles, I didn't know he was there, and he didn't know I was there. And we had trauma counseling the following week. And I said to him, "So why did you leave?" He goes, "Real simple for me." He goes, "I'm from Northern Ireland. I heard a boom and I left." And it's as simple as he put it to me. Um, but it's a hard road. It's still 23 years later, 22, 22 years later, I still deal with it. I was dealing with this morning. I'm thinking about stuff as I'm driving to work. I'm thinking about the U2 concert that we saw in October of 2001. I'm thinking about that, and we got free tickets, and we went, and Bono is very political. And I said to myself, if he starts his political stuff about 9/11, I'm walking out. There's 20,000 people in the auditorium. Who cares? But I'm walking out. And he does his whole show. He does all his other political stuff, says nothing. I'm like, okay, so maybe this is good. Last song comes, do second encore, he comes out. I'm like, here we go. He opens up his jacket. Leather jacket, he has an American flag on his jacket. And he starts singing the song, One Love, One Life. And they start scrolling the names. And they start flashing. There was not a dry eye in the entire arena. It was just amazing to see. But that's what I'm thinking about this morning, 22 years later. And it's October. So I don't know what that's the key to it, but we do a lot of volunteer work. We give back a lot. I've talked to a lot of school groups, really before COVID. During COVID, probably not that much, but I've talked to a lot of school groups. We volunteered at a museum called the Tribute Museum. We volunteered at the 9/11 Museum until COVID. It helps me to talk to people. It helps me to educate you guys. And that way, you know what happened, because there's a lot of false stuff on the internet, and you got conspiracy theories of anything. There's conspiracy theories, and you know, just realize that in New York, 2,753 people went to work, and 2,753 people didn't come home. Firefighters are doing their jobs. 343 firefighters died. New York City Police Department, the Port Authority agency, they have their own police force. Officers died. But that's really kind of why I do this, because I want you guys to learn the right way. And one thing that I've always said this for many, many years. Enjoy today, because you don't know what tomorrow brings. And if you guys go home and give your parents a hug, tell them you love them. It doesn't hurt. And because you don't know what's going to happen to anybody tomorrow. And like I said, 3,000 people went to work between the three locations, on a plane, on a trip, going to an office, and didn't come home. It's kind of as simple as that.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and and I'm glad that we can continue to learn from your story. Do you mind if we jump right into some student questions?
Sure. What have you got?
Okay. This is Daniel from Spain. Daniel, if you go ahead and ask your first question, if we have time, we'll let you go to your second question. But Daniel, you should be able to unmute to ask your question. Go ahead, friend.
Hi, Brian. First of all, this tragedy has always interested me, and it's been a pleasure to hear your story.
Yep.
I have two questions.
Sure.
First question is, where did you get the strength to survive America's worst tragedy?
Where'd I get strength?
Yeah, where'd you get the strength to survive, like to keep going?
I don't know. I know I needed to get out of there. I needed to get home, and I walked, basically. Just to kind of get away. In my mind, I needed to be far enough away. The buildings fell like this. They just came right down, basically. In my mind, for some reason, I was thinking if the buildings collapsed like this, be far enough away. And that's why I just kept walking. I just kept walking in the direction that I kind of knew where things were, to a degree, because I didn't really know Lower Manhattan. I mean, I worked there, but I came in either one or two ways. I didn't do anything down there. So I basically just walked, because, like I said, if the buildings fell like this, just to be far enough away.
We have a few questions that were emailed to me, so we'll bounce back and forth from emailed questions. But one of the students wanted to know, how has your experience as a September 11th survivor influenced your perspective on life? I know that you had mentioned about tomorrow not being guaranteed, but is there anything else that you kind of took from the experience?
Makes you appreciate things. It just makes you appreciate life, appreciate people you have in your life. To me, that's kind of what it is. I mean, back then I worked a lot. I have a small business, and I worked a lot back then, and I still work a lot now. Okay. But if my wife needs something, or my daughter needs something, especially if she was in school, she's independent now. She's 30 now, but when she was in school, or even now, she needs something, that's my first priority. Everything gets dropped. And I've told several companies that, and they might not like it, but that's how it is for me. And to me, if you didn't have some kind of experience, I don't mean like mine, but just a general life experience, that with your family, or, being potentially of, not being here, you would have that attitude too, I'm sure. So that's why I just put things first in my life, and that's kind of how it go.
Yeah, you have a wonderful perspective. I feel very blessed to know you, and I've met you, and hung out with you, and we have a few more questions. This again, we'll pop back to Daniel over in Spain. He had a good second question. Go ahead and ask, friend.
Hi, Brian. The second question is, what did you think when you heard the explosion?
When I heard,
did you hear any explosions, or Second question, I kind of wanted to ask this one. What did you think when you found out it was an attack? Like, what was going on in your head?
I don't really think I comprehended that, to be honest with you, for a while. I mean, like I said, I got home, I watched it on TV, and I said, turn the TV off, I can't watch my friends die. I don't know how long it took me to figure out it was an attack. I know I know in other parts of the country it was covered, but it wasn't covered a lot. In New York City area, it was on TV probably about 6 months. It was on, and it always brought you back to it. It was like you're watching the news at night, and the news would start out with, oh, the weather is clear today, so to clean up at ground zero will be good. Oh, it's going to snow tomorrow. It's going to hamper the efforts at ground zero. So it was in here, there was really no getting away from it. So it was always in your face for a long time. We had friends in the Midwest. My wife's best girlfriend, is in Kansas. She's like, no, it disappeared in a couple of weeks. And they talked about it, but it really kind of left. In New York, you always had the constant reminders of it, on TV and stuff. You could never get away with it at all.
One thing I've always found so remarkable about when you talk to kids, you talk about hope and you talk about their yes, tomorrow's not guaranteed, but you talk about enjoying the present with those
Right.
around you. And
Right.
that's what I like, is that it doesn't end on September 11th. Your story essentially kind of begins September 11th and continues for decades after that. And that brings me to a student question. They wanted to know, how do you feel about the importance of remembering and educating future generations about the events of September 11th in context of the World Trade Center Memorial and the museum? Why is that work so important?
Um, it's important to me to honor my friends who died, and that's why I talk about them. As far as the museum and the memorial go, we've supported them really from day one when they first started this effort, probably in 2005, 2006, I think. That's when they actually started this. But to me, it's, I think everybody who comes to New York City should go to the museum. I think it's something that you need to experience on your own or with a group or something like that. The memorial is beautiful. It's beautiful and sad at the same time. It lists every single person who died, their names. It's a waterfall. It's beautiful and sad at night. It's uplit, so the names kind of glow at night. And the museum itself tells a story today and honors the people who died. And anybody who wants to go, we bring them through because, to me, I want you to. Certain things in the museum I like to show. Basically, it's called an in memorandum room. It's a picture of everybody who died, and they let their families leave stories about them. So pictures and stories about them. And when the museum opened May of 2014, and we went in, and there was something for Bob. I'm sorry, there was something for Steve, something for Jill. There was nothing there for Bob because Bob was an older gentleman. And I went to the management and I said, listen, I need to leave something for him. And they let me. I talked for 45 minutes and they left about 3 minutes of words, but it was okay. But there's something. So the museum, it really touches me. It's a beautiful place to see. It tells a story today. It's not easy to go through there at all. I don't mean it like that. There are times I've walked out, but I think everybody should go to the museum and the memorial.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to learn more about that, it's 911memorial.org. We have 2 more student questions. Is that all right? We'll let you go, Brian.
Sure, whatever you want to do.
Okay. We have Amelia. Amelia, you can unmute. You had a pretty good question. Go ahead.
Hi. Were you scared of something happening after that day?
I kind of was, I guess, but I didn't really focus on that because you didn't know what else was going on or what else was going to happen. So being where we live, kind of yes, but I don't think that was really one of my big focuses. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine that. And it's just I just wanted to see for this final question, with everything going on in the world, what message or advice would you offer to the students regarding resilience, the power of community, and the ability to overcome adversity when faced with such a catastrophic event like that?
Well, first of all, I think you guys are the future, and I think you guys need to do something about this stuff. I'm old. I'm done. I'm tired. But I think you guys are the future, and whether it be, I'm not a political person at all, whether it be political or getting involved in something or whatever you need to do, you guys need to change things, good or bad. You guys need to change things. Kind of as kind of what's going on. I don't really focus on what's going on. I have a lot of friends who are Jewish and in Israel, and there's been some conversations with them. I try to stay out of a lot of that only because I can't focus on it. It'll consume me, and I can't let, not just what's going on now specifically, but just in general, I don't focus on things because I would get obsessed about it. My wife does. She knows everything about everybody, and I'm like, I can't.
I should have been more specific. I meant like just any catastrophic event, politics aside, but just when adversity hits in people's lives, what advice would you have as far as being resilient against that adversity and rising above it?
Okay. Don't lose hope. There's always the light at the end of the tunnel, I like to say. It might be gloomy today. It might be even something personal in your life. It might be gloomy today, but you got to be hopeful because things change, people change, and it's how it is to me.
I love talking to you, Brian. And thank you so much for connecting with us. I know it's getting kind of late for our kids in Europe, and a lot of people are going to be watching this recast next week in their classes. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time
thank you, guys.
Inspire and educate these kids. And before we go, I'll let everyone unmute. And can we all say thank you to Brian before I end the meeting for all? Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Please tell Cynthia and everyone say hi.
Sure.
And hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye.
Thank you, Brian.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.